There is no escape. You've entered the realm of the Class Horror Cast, a podcast that covers everything in the world of horror. And now, from the Emerald Isle, First Class Horror presents the Class Horror Cast. The last scream you hear may be your own.
In many ways, Eduardo Sanchez is one of the most important horror directors of the past 20 years. When he and his team of collaborators unleashed the film The Blair Witch Project out into the world in the summer of 1999, it became a cultural phenomenon and spawned countless found footage horror films that have become a staple of the genre. Up next is my conversation I had with Ed. We talk about many things from The Blair Witch Project to his movies such as Altered and Seventh Moon. We discuss some TV shows, some Blair Witch lore, toy collecting, and much, much more. So I hope you guys enjoy.
Yeah, man, it's really tough. I mean, yeah, like real life gets in the way. I mean, I was really lucky with, Blair Witch, because I mean, it could have easily turned out a different way, and I wouldn't be talking to you right now.
Yeah.
But because I mean, most of the people that I went to film school with, aren't even in the business anymore,
Yeah, which is crazy when you think it's probably like, I mean, the career you've had is probably less than 1%.
Yeah, no, absolutely, man. I feel so blessed to have not only, had, been able to make some movies, but also now being able to direct, a lot of television, which is, really, really fulfilling, and then now hopefully have our own TV show soon. So, that's kind of been the goal for the last 5 years. And it looks like we're finally getting, at least we're getting a little more deeper into it. It's a tough game.
I feel like everybody is waiting for that announcement.
Yeah. No, we've been, my partner Greg Hale, who was one of the producers on Blair Witch.
Yep.
We're the only guys who are still together. And we, I've been directing and he's been writing, and he's just been coming up with really great stuff. And I go in and help him pitch and, kind of throw ideas at him and, edit some stuff, but mostly it's him. But he's just, really creatively kind of going crazy right now. And so we've been pitching basically every 4 months or so, a new television show idea. And we've gotten, made a lot of contacts and, made some inroads at a bunch of different places, but we have only sold one show, and that was a few years ago. And it was a show that was supposed to take place in Cuba, and it became politically completely impossible to do it after, right when we were about to start scouting. It was 2016. Castro died, and then Trump got elected, and all business, at least all American business in Cuba, ceased to exist almost overnight.
Mm-hmm.
So,
which is a pity.
Yeah, it was a pity. I mean, it was like a dream come true, man. We were gonna shoot in Cuba, and it was just, it was Stars, which was a major channel that had, a lot of money, and they were very excited about our pilot, and we were ready to go. So now we just sold a show to Apple, and
nice.
We're still developing it. We're still probably at least 6 months from a green light, but still, it's good to be in the game
direction.
and still be able to
was that something that
still be able to play in this arena.
Yeah. Was that something that you guys kind of had I suppose maybe not so much for Greg, but for you, was that something that you've always wanted to do?
What, my own TV show?
Yeah, or be involved in the film business, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I grew up on television, obviously, in the 70s. And I think, television went through a period where, for a long time, I mean, it was kind of like where the second class kind of talent went, unfortunately, but then HBO came along, and Sopranos and Breaking Bad, and all these really incredible shows started popping up on television. And now, television is like, it's going through it's in a resurgence that I don't think it's ever had before because of all the streaming services. There's so much demand for content. Um, so all of a sudden it became more feasible to do TV shows than films. And also I still feel like there's more diverse, obviously there's more diversity in television than there is in the movies, as far as like in all aspects, as far as like, ideas and, representation and, all that stuff. So, the coolest stuff out there was television. I mean, it's like there's always films that come along and kind of, blow up. But now, you hear about television shows really more often than movies, People are recommending this and that, and,
Yeah, it's true. It's true. And I think especially with things like Netflix and stuff like that,
hmm
it's really
yeah,
just, it's crazy to see. Like, I mean, we see it a lot here in Ireland where a lot of things doesn't release at the same time.
yeah,
So, and then we get stuff on Netflix the same time as the US or Canada or whatever. And like
yeah,
people just, it just explodes.
yeah, yeah.
It seems like
Oh,
every time Netflix has an original now, it just goes, it's like crazy. Facebook, everywhere you look.
yeah. No, and we've pitched to Netflix a bunch of times, and they're always like, we want to keep pushing, keep doing, unique stuff. So yeah, I think it's cool, man. I think it's really great to have, just, back in the day, it was mostly just three networks, and then, four, really four networks. And if you couldn't do that, then you were kind of, if
Yeah,
they didn't buy you, you were kind of
mhm.
done. Um, but it's great to have all these opportunities to do cool stuff. And also the idea that they're like really, they really want, they want unique stuff. Like even Apple, we pitched them a show and they really liked it, but they went, they were like, well, we'd love to kind of, they kind of guide the story in a more ambiguous way, you know what I mean? A more ambiguous route, which was which was surprising because usually, it seems like a lot of people want bigger and, crazy or whatever. And their whole thing was kind of, scaling it back. Um,
Really.
yeah. So, and they're like kind of trying to find a unique path, you know what I mean? And I think all of them are kind of, at this place where they want, um, they want unique stuff. They want stuff that, hasn't been seen before, and they're willing to take chances. And it's a really exciting time, man.
Do you feel like companies like that are more hands on maybe or more involved?
Well, well, I mean, I think, it depends, I think. Like we did a show in, back in 99, 2000, after Blair Witch, we got a deal with Fox, and we produced this show called Freaky Links. And,
Mm-hmm.
you know, we worked with Dave Goyer, who, went on to, he was already a successful screenwriter. But he went on to do really amazing things and still does amazing things. But him and Greg came up with this really cool show, and everybody starts off with, oh, we want the Blair Witch, we want the edginess of Blair Witch, and we want to push the envelope, and we want to kind of do something that again, like hasn't been seen before. But back at and then they, at least with that show, they progressed to just you know they got progressively more generic and more generic, kind of pulling all the punches, you know what I mean, of the show and all the edginess. It's for, especially for Greg and David, that's really creatively stifling,
Yeah,
and very
yeah.
frustrating.
It sucks the life out of the project, kind of.
Yeah. So,
Mm-hmm.
and then so that the end result is like this show that's still, a good show. But, if you look back at the original pilot or the original kind of treatment that they did, would have been a much better show if they had just let, the creatives do their stuff. And I think now, it seems like a lot of places are, kind of have learned that lesson. Like if you look at it, I think part of, and I've never worked with them, but I have, heard people, stories. It's like, you people like, stage like a place like HBO,
Mm-hmm.
it seems like they're really involved during the development. But then once you get the idea honed in, they seem to leave you alone for the most part. And I think, network television, at least our experience with network television with Fox, it was very different. It was just, a lot of cooks in the kitchen. And,
Mm-hmm.
it was, film, like television making by committee. Kind of a little, the same situation we ran into with the second Blair Witch movie, that it was, we were having these conference calls with like, 10 people on the phone, and they were all creatively involved and, in throwing ideas out for the movie. And it was just like,
Yeah, I
I
guess
remember,
I mean
I,
I suppose
yeah,
everybody wanted to be in the Blair Witch business at that point.
yeah, absolutely. And I understand that, I mean, the business side of it, I understand. Like,
Mm-hmm.
none of us are here to work for free, and everybody wants to make money and, and be rewarded for their work, obviously. Um, but yeah, they became, the Blair Witch Company kind of overnight, and and they had a lot of, back in those days, Artisan had a really great stable of, filmmakers that were working with them, and you know, the almighty dollar kind of pushed everything aside. And it's understandable. It's like, it is a business. But I think they, you know, it
Yeah,
just happens, man.
I
So, and,
actually
but anyway, some places have learned, I think, to kind of, the balance between, commerce and art. So.
yeah, because I watched Blair Witch 2 recently, actually this week,
Hmm.
and I watched it with the commentary track. And Joe seems a little disgruntled. I had read,
Oh yeah.
I had read some articles that he said it just kind of, even when he was brought on board slowly, he just started to lose his
Oh
grasp
yeah.
on what it
Yeah.
became.
Yeah. 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 Well, I mean, I wasn't in on the conversation, but my partner at the time, Dan Myrick, told us that he had had a talk with Joe, like, as he was starting the process, and Dan, warned him, like, he was like, you're putting yourself in a pretty precarious situation as far as filmmaker, because, you have this hard deadline, you have, you know, a studio that seems to be more interested in, that is definitely interested in just cashing out on this hit that they never thought they'd have. Um, and you're stuck in the middle of it, and Joe, but I mean, Joe is a talented dude, so he made his decision and kept moving forward, and I don't blame him. I mean, I would have probably stuck with it too. He didn't know it was, the shit show that was coming, um but yeah, I mean, because it was pretty obvious to us what was happening, and once, we bowed out of, actually creating something, because they, at first they wanted us to do something, and we wanted to do a prequel. Like, we wanted to go back to, like, the late 1700s, and tell the story of, like, the Blair Township.
And that was something you guys had actually thought about at that point, or?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, that was an idea that I had. It was pretty obvious to go back, in the Blair Witch mythology, but I had an idea about, like a colonial era horror story, almost like The Witch. I had it,
Mm-hmm.
like back in film school. Just the idea of, like, oh, that'd be cool to do a period piece, horror movie. Um, and then when Blair Witch came along, it was just kind of a perfect, like, oh my God, we could do a prequel as this, kind of called it a colonial horror story, and it's something that I still honestly want to do.
Yeah, I think that
But
would be amazing. I've read
yeah, yeah,
so many backstories and stuff for
yeah. I mean, I
Ellie
think it would have
Kemmer and
worked for Blair
stuff.
Witch, but so then we pitched them, the idea, and they were like, we don't, we think we should do a sequel, and we're like, well, we're not interested in doing a sequel at this time. So they, they went away, and then like a few months later, they came back and they were like, "Okay, we'll let you do the prequel, but you have to release it, in October of next year."
Ooh.
And this is like, I mean, I remember being at this December of '99, I guess, and and Dan and I and all the Haxon guys, had been through the Blair Witch mill, like, I mean, we had been, the movie had blown up, and we had gained, all this notoriety, and we were,
Yeah,
Dan and I
somebody had
did,
actually, I think I had put up a couple of posts on Reddit asking for questions and stuff and different things that people might want to know.
yeah,
And somebody actually used a Conor McGregor quote to explain your guys, like, I suppose, exposure with Blair Witch, which was from nothing to something to everything, which I
yeah,
think kind of sums it up.
yeah,
That you
it was
guys like
crazy. And
went
we
to the
were
pinnacle.
like in this, still in this, at the end of this year, this craziest year of our lives. And and all they were like, yeah, we want you to do the prequel. And they were like, we have to release it in 10 months. And we were just like, we don't even have the story. I mean, we have the basic storyline, but we don't have a script. We haven't cast, and we wanted to do it in the winter, so it meant that we were going to have to travel somewhere, and shoot during the summer, and we were like, it's impossible, like that's not a good way to make a movie. So we declined, and they were already writing scripts, and then around that time is when Joe, I guess, pitched them, and they moved forward with Joe's vision.
Yeah, I mean, if if you guys had been left the option, would how long would you have left it between the original and maybe a prequel or a sequel or?
I think if they would have said, let's skip a year and get ready for 2001, for a 2001 release of Blair Witch prequel, I think we would have agreed. But they they wanted, they just wanted it something right away, and they felt that it was going to die down, and we felt like the opposite. We felt like, I think you should just kind of back away from it a little bit and then come back. People are still going to remember. It's not like you're coming back 10 years later.
Yeah, yeah. I think that seems to be from what I see, that seems to be the fear that they had, that this would die down and people wouldn't care, which I
Yeah.
think is crazy considering we're sitting here
Yeah.
21 years
Well,
later.
and also I think that, they had like business, ideas.
Mm-hmm.
They wanted to, expand IPO, or, they definitely wanted to, they had like kind of corporate interests,
Yeah, yeah.
which is natural. They were a corporation, so of course they're going to have corporate interests kind of guiding them a little bit, pushing them. Um, but yeah, man, I mean, it's like one of the things, like the only thing, you know, you can go back and look back at that time, and there are some things, a lot of mistakes we made, and but I think that era, like I think that there would have, you know, I think if we would have played it a little more smart, and they would have played, we would have been more convincing with them. I think we would have walked away with at least a prequel, if not a few films, during
Do,
the 2000s, with a couple of new Blair Witch movies.
would you guys have, or did you ever consider a sequel, or is that something that you think could have been done?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, actually, years later, like maybe, I don't know, probably 10 years ago or 8 years ago or something. Um, we went back to Lionsgate. I'm not sure how it happened, but we were like basically talking about doing another movie, and they actually, commissioned a script, for a sequel that Dan and I wrote, and it was a good script. It was, it definitely kind of expanded the mythology, and it was not about the three filmmakers. It was more, and it was a complete different story. It was not found footage, but I think the movie was a little more expensive than they wanted it to be. Um, and they ended up, like passing on it. But they definitely, even to this day, one of the executives over there was like, man, I really like that. I really like that script you guys wrote. You guys really nailed it or whatever. But it's just kind of.
Do you think that's something we'll ever see or can see?
You mean the script or the actual movie?
I Well, I would like to say the movie more than anything.
The script, I mean, I don't know, it's probably out there somewhere. I'm not sure. I've let a few people read it, but it's kind of like, I'm not sure, I'm not sure how, if, I didn't, it's not just my decision to get it out there. So,
Yeah.
We've kind of held it close. But yeah, I think that maybe, if you did a search, you might be able to find it out there somewhere.
And is that something like, would you guys push for something like that again, considering I know we had the sequel a couple of years ago? Is that something, do you feel like a lot of people, I think the general consensus from a lot of people seems to be that they enjoyed the movie, but they would have enjoyed it more if it hadn't have been called Blair Witch.
Yeah. Well, I think that the answer to your question is that, yeah, I think that they are. I mean, we don't own Blair Witch. Lionsgate owns Blair Witch, so it's basically completely up to them. And unfortunately, like usually what happens with these, it's been 20 years, 21 years since Blair Witch, so I think that that they always try to go and look for the new talent to kind of tell the story, like retell the story, like really younger talent, most of the time. And so I think that we've had a bunch of run-ins, Greg and I think Dan as well. I mean, we definitely had the run-in with the sequel, and then Greg and I went out and a few years ago and actually we developed a TV show together with them. And I'm not sure what is, happening with it. I know that we're not involved. I'm not sure what stage it's in. But there was talk about doing a television show, and I think that is I think that's where I think the next Blair Witch, incarnation will occur is a television show, because it's kind of a no-brainer. And we pitched them a pretty good show, and just for some reason it didn't work, and it was it just sometimes that stuff happens. And it might have been something where we don't have enough television credentials yet, to like power our own show. But hopefully, I mean, my thing, and I think Greg feels the same way, is that I'd love to go back, and revisit Blair Witch. I mean, even if they do another TV show and they hire me to direct an episode, I would be, I'd love to do it. But so we'd love to play in that sandbox again, and we have a crazy amount of ideas, but in the meantime, we've kind of, obviously we have to move on, and
of course.
It's really in their, the ball's in their court. I mean,
I just feel like it's a huge misstep in a way, not just because we're talking, but I think the idea of I hear you talk a lot about like your passion for TV and stuff now, and I do honestly think that that's probably, after seeing the way the last movie went, I would love to see it go the TV route, and I do think then you can explore prequel.
Because I think television gives you more canvas to paint on. It gives you more time. It's just basic math, I guess. You have, instead of an hour and a half, you have usually 10 hours or 10 episodes, almost 10 hours of, so you can basically spread things out and develop things that sometimes work and sometimes don't work, and you have a chance to experiment and test out a lot of ideas. And with a movie, it's like you have to have the premise and you have to get into it and have to have the scares every 10 minutes or every 5 minutes or whatever the formula is, and you have to, whatever, you have to have all these kind of benchmarks that you have to hit. um,
Yeah,
and
I just think I think you're right with the canvas thing. I mean, I'm not sure. I mean, I don't know, but it would be cool to see maybe a prequel season. And I mean, you could set different seasons in different parts or stories in the
yeah,
universe.
yeah. I mean, that was, that's kind of the general idea because there is, I mean, Blair Witch World is like there's time travel all over the place in the
Mm-hmm.
Blair Witch, world. It's not really a like a time travel, you know, um, it's not really centered on time travel as far as like the marketing and the obvious, story. It's a horror movie, but it is really a time travel story. I mean, in every other one of the movies, there's weird, you know, there's there's the universe shifts around the protagonist. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. A lot of people actually had messaged me online and asked me to ask you that. Is that something that's actually is that lore or canon that there is actually some sort of time travel involved, or is that something
Absolutely.
that was never
I mean,
intended?
at least like I don't know. It's definitely time travel, but it's that I don't know if it's linear or whatever. You get into like really deep shit with time travel and stuff. But
Mm-hmm.
there's definitely alternate universes being explored in Blair Witch. I mean, even the first one, the house that they go into at the end of the movie doesn't physically exist in 1994. Like
Yeah,
that it was burned down in the 40s after Rustin Parr was hung, and or was hanged. Um, so that when you look at that house on that footage, that house doesn't exist. The only thing that exists in that area is a foundation. According to the Blair Witch mythology, that's where Heather's footage was found, in the foundation of the Rustin Parr house. So you have this. So in the movie, on film and video, you have time travel. You have alternate reality where this house somehow exists in the 90s, so that Heather, Mike, and Josh, or Heather and Mike, can run across it. And then obviously, in the and Book of Shadows, I haven't seen Book of Shadows in so long, but obviously probably has that, definitely has those elements. And then the third movie, of course, um, there's weird alternate time loops all over the place, which was a really fun part of the movie. But So yeah, it's definitely there's definitely universe changing and time travel, and environments change, and people, I mean, even Heather, Mike, and Josh were stuck in these woods that aren't really that big, but they somehow couldn't get out of
yeah,
it.
yeah,
They
yeah,
were stuck in
yeah.
this this weird loop. So for sure.
Have you have you ever seen any of the online theories that people have come up with for other versions of the movie not involving a witch?
Yes, yeah, absolutely.
The Mike
um
and Josh
yeah,
theory, yeah.
no, and like and I I think I love it, and I think when when Dan and I came up with the original idea, and then when everybody else got involved, like the part of the part of the strategy was that we were never going to explain it all, that we didn't even know what really happened. I mean, for me, like, is there something supernatural happening in Blair Witch Project? Of course. Of course there is. That, like I said, that house doesn't exist
Mm-hmm.
in real
Yeah,
life,
I feel like in one sense it's like frustrating because everybody wants the answer. Like everybody wanted me to come on and ask, and I want
Yeah,
to know. But at the
absolutely.
same
No,
time, I feel like it creates something special that we don't really see anymore. Everything has to be cookie cutter, wrapped up, explained.
yes, yes, which is like, you know, the most, probably one of the most frustrating parts of like, horror at
Mm-hmm.
this day and
Yeah,
age. Um, I think that, there's definitely some great horror films being made, but the best ones are the most ambiguous ones. Um, like I think that the tendency is to like, let the cat out of the bag, definitely by the end of the movie.
Yeah, yeah,
And I feel like, the movies that I loved as a kid, that really scared the crap out of me, um, you know, didn't provide all the answers. It was just, there was no resolution. You know what I mean? Sometimes it was just like, okay, like Amityville Horror is, one of my favorite, haunted house movies, probably my favorite haunted house movie. And, they just run away at the end. I mean,
yeah,
they,
yeah, 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 yeah.
I mean, well, I mean, there's no like, oh, let's go back and kick the ghost's ass and, and prove that whatever, there's no like Scooby Doo kind of ending. And I feel that like, you know,
Yeah,
I don't
it's
know,
like
man. I don't know what
I
started it.
recently
Did Sixth Sense start it? Like the whole idea of, that brilliant ending of Sixth Sense that, I know that everybody wanted to do a twist but is that part of the culture that's kind of it's mutated into something where like now you have to know everything or else you get frustrated? And for me, it's like, well, once you know everything, it's not that scary anymore, is it?
yeah, true. And
Oh.
like I recently seen, I don't know if you've seen it yet, The Invisible Man.
Yes, I saw it.
And I mean, I really, really, really enjoyed it. Um,
Yeah.
Much more than I thought I was. But one thing I will say is, it has kind of all those things. You get, I feel like it's made for mainstream. So at the end, we get our perfect
Yeah.
resolution,
I
and
I
we
mean,
walk away
I,
with the final shot.
yeah, I mean, I really liked it too. And I really enjoy, I can't remember filmmaker's name, but I
Lee
really enjoy
Wanell.
his films. He's really doing great stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But again, it's like you could have ended that movie 5 minutes earlier, and I think it would have been a cooler
Yes. Yeah. Yep.
end. You know what I mean?
And I
Uh,
thought that's actually where the movie was going without spoiling it for anybody. I did think the movie was going in a different direction.
yeah, to me it was like it would have been cooler if you would have like left it a little more ambiguous.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, but it's a choice they made, and it's making a lot of money, and it's a good film. So, um, but yeah, I sometimes it's a little frustrating sometimes.
Yeah, I do feel like that was definitely something that Blair Witch had going for it, and
Yeah,
I was always curious, was it intentional? In the sense that, I mean, it's been 20, 21 years, and
yeah,
like even still to this day on Reddit and stuff, you've got guys who like I have come up with so many different theories, so many different, and it's just so
yeah.
open. It's just nobody
Well,
knows.
because like I guess um, Blair Witch is just the the style that it was shot in. It's a documentary basically. I mean, it's a fake documentary, but it's a documentary. So I think that it's like every documentary, like every successful kind of documentary that kind of blows up on Netflix or HBO or whatever. Like there's this where there's a murder or where somebody where is a there's always something controversial about you don't get all the answers a lot of times in documentaries. You know what I mean? Like they set up the case and they give you the evidence, but then you're like, oh, did he really kill that person? And it's fun to speculate. It's fun to like
Yeah,
go there
yeah,
and speculate. And I think Blair Witch still has such a like when you watch it, it still feels like it feels so real because of the performances and the way we shot it and the way we edited it and the sound mix. It just feels like a real experience, even though that these are actors. Um, that at the end you kind of want that closure, like you do at the end of of a good documentary. You know what I mean? And so that I think there is this certain, and we didn't give any answers, obviously. So there's definitely it's still a mystery. I mean, it really is a mystery. Like for me, like if you follow, not just what's in the movie, but if you follow the mythology of of the movie, like how the hell did Heather's footage end up in the foundation of that Rustin
yeah,
Parr's
yeah,
house? Like how did that happen? And who put it there? Somebody put the camera in her backpack and put all the films of all the reels of film and all the video films and buried it, in the foundation of the Rustin Parr house. And if you go even further, it was buried under like layers of dated, according to the archaeologists that, like, that discovered it, is that, that it was under, something, it was under undisturbed soil.
This couldn't be
So,
possible.
okay, so how do you do that? How did that happen? So, you know, we definitely created something that the only explanation is a supernatural explanation, but that's where the fun is that, like if you really break down Blair Witch, and you break down the mythology and you break down all the points in the case, there's no logical explanation for it. There has to be some kind of supernatural,
Yeah,
you
because
know.
I feel like even a lot of the theories and stuff I had read, even about Mike and Josh were actually the ones that led Heather out there to kill her and stuff. Then it kind of spins off into one of them was possessed by Rust and Parr, and both of them
Yeah,
were under the.
which to me is like all valid, like
Mm-hmm.
to me, like absolutely. Like, did Josh, like it's, like, was Josh out there by himself, like faking, like ripping his teeth out just by himself, which I think is even more terrifying than
Yeah,
somebody else doing it.
yeah,
And then was he just had gone crazy, and then he went and, basically lured them into this house and killed Mike, and then killed Heather. Yeah, I mean, absolutely, that could have happened. But then that doesn't explain what happened to, and then so what happened to Josh? And if Mike and Josh killed Heather, then what happened to them? Why did they disappear from
yeah,
the planet,
yeah,
off the face of the earth? You know what I mean? Like,
yeah. Is that
um,
something if you guys ever do hopefully get a chance to revisit Blair Witch in some way? Is that something you would explore, or are those things
oh
better
yeah, absolutely.
left?
I mean, even the sequel that that we wrote for Lionsgate, um, definitely lays in a lot of mysteries, but has that component of time travel,
Mm-hmm.
and I can't exactly remember, but I definitely feel like there are some answers to some stuff that happened in the first one. I mean, there's, obviously we open a lot more questions, but there's definitely a component to it that basically, that goes into some of the stuff that happened. I mean, the in our sequel, the three original filmmakers are in the movie. Like, I
Oh,
can't really say too
yeah,
much
yeah,
about it,
I
but
get you.
they're in the movie. I mean, they're, you know, um, you see, well, at least you see them in the movie. You see them multiple times in the movie. You
Cool,
know.
cool. Hopefully, we'll see that someday.
Yeah, I mean, I think the script it's a good script, and the people that have read it are like, man, why didn't they do this or whatever? And it might be something that, I mean, look, if Greg and I succeed with our TV empire, that the little empire that we're building, and we get a hit show, and we get it, because how it is, you get one show and then you get another
Yeah,
show, and then you start, that's our goal, is to have multiple shows going. Um, if that happens and we get enough heat, I think that there's a good chance that, or, if I'm always involved in developing movies, I'm going to get behind the camera of a feature, one day again, hopefully, if the coronavirus doesn't, get me. Um, but
there's a movie.
that's the plan. The plan is to do so. If one of my, you never know, if one of my movies explodes and does a little, does well and makes a little money for somebody, they might come back and say, hey, Ed, do you want to do another, want to do a Blair Witch movie, or we want to do a Blair Witch TV show? And of course we would, if we would love to do that. We've told, we've been pretty obvious with that, pretty open with that. So you never know, but for right now, I mean, Greg and I are pretty happy with where we
Where
are,
things are
and
at.
yeah, we're doing well
Good, good. And
without Blair Witch,
yeah, of course, of course. I feel like sometimes, obviously it. I think a lot of it when people want to talk about it is less about maybe reminiscing and constantly just talking about the same thing over and over, and more about the fact that it still is, over 20 years later, probably one of the greatest horror movies of all time.
Well,
And
thank
I
you,
think
sir.
a
Yeah,
lot of people still feel like that. I mean,
yeah,
I'm much like Matt, who wrote the book, which is amazing. Um,
yeah. No, yeah,
there's
Matt.
such like, I mean, to see that, like, I feel like you don't get that with a lot of franchises and a lot of brands, and
Yeah,
Blair Witch still has that fresh. Because I see some people online say, oh, if you watch it nowadays, it doesn't work. I've showed it to some people who never seen it before, and the reaction that I seen says something completely different.
yes, yeah. Look, I think Blair Witch is. Anyway, thanks for all that. It's kind of amazing to be. I feel so blessed that I was a part of it. Um, and I still. I work. I have a career now because of Blair Witch. Like the idea of my life being without Blair Witch is, there's no separating us. And fortunately for me,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of people ask me like, don't you get tired of talking about Blair Witch? I'm like, as long as somebody wants to talk to me about Blair Witch, I'll talk. Why would I not want to talk about Blair Witch? You know what I mean? Like, it's if you're interested. I'm not gonna like go out and just babble, and start talking about Blair Witch
Yeah.
without people asking me whatever. But yeah, if you ask me about it, of course I love talking about it. I love that it has that connection with people. But I just feel so fortunate to have been a part of, this movie that yeah, you're right, has become this that again, it won't go away. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
um,
I mean, a lot of people say, oh, number two wasn't the first nail in the coffin, and then a couple of years ago we got another nail in the coffin. I
mhm.
honestly, yeah, maybe in some ways, people are upset because they feel like the franchise has been killed off, but I
Yeah,
just
the
think a
franchise
lot
has
of
definitely
people are
been
willing to forget
mishandled.
about that.
Yeah, it's the franchise has definitely been mishandled. Yeah.
Yeah, unfortunately, but I still think anybody who's an actual fan is willing to kind of just forget about that and go back 20
Yeah.
years and just look solely at the first movie.
Yeah. Yeah, because I think that the idea, you know, was like, it was like for us, it was like this, you know, Blair Witch created this playground that we loved playing in, and more than, any other movie that we had ever, the idea that we had ever come up with up until that point. And even now, up to this, it just created this whole idea of like, you know, this world that opened up, that it just wasn't about the movie. It was about, the legend, and it was about examining, the evidence and the mystery of what happened, 200 years ago, and the fact that something weird happens every 50 years, um and then the disappearance of the three filmmakers, and there's so much like raw material produced, about this fictional story, you know what I mean? And we did it, mostly for marketing, but we were doing it also just for fun, because it was like we had created all this information. We were like, oh man, I think people would love to see this, so it created this, it created this whole kind of crazy internet buzz, and was like this viral, this kind of created this viral craziness. And we all, it was a well played and well distributed, and Artisan and us, we worked together really well, and it was, on all the planets aligned. We got really lucky, and now I think people go back and start like unfolding that story, and going, holy shit, this was it just was this incredible, not just because it was a horror movie or whatever that scared people or whatever, it was weird, but it really was a really unique cinematic experience. You know what I mean? It was, and I hate like to uh to put us, to even talk about us in the same in the same sentence, the same paragraph as like, Orson Welles' War of the Worlds, you know what I mean? But like when I heard the story of War of the Worlds, that to me, that fascinated me, man. Like the idea of what happened, and to hear the radio play, and to like kind of speculate as far as like, hell yeah, dude, I would have been scared. I would have been
Yeah,
freaking out.
yeah,
I
yeah,
understand exactly what happened. and the power of media, you know what I mean? The power of radio at that time,
Hmm.
And I think Blair Witch came out and like, was again like a evidence of like the power of media, the power of cinema, the power of television, and then for the first time, I think the power of the internet,
Yeah,
to
yeah.
market,
Sometimes, like I
the
personally feel
picture.
like sometimes maybe that glosses over the talent that you guys have. Um, I do think that there's been people in the past, maybe not to have something as successful as Blair Witch, but they just kind of fade away and you don't really hear of anything. I feel like you guys have kind of carried on, and it's not solely from Blair Witch. I think, yeah, I guess it was a perfect storm in a lot of ways, but it took, I think, guys with the passion and the talent that you had to kind of bring it to where it was.
Well, thank you, sir. Yeah, I mean, look, I mean, I think we all have a certain amount of talent. Everybody has a certain amount of talent, and it's just a matter of like exploiting that, or finding that talent and having the opportunity to exploit that talent. And I think, I mean, we all worked our asses off on Blair Witch, but it wasn't anything different than any other movie I'd done up to that point. And and I know plenty of, I mean, I'm sure you do as well. Like, you make these films and you put all your heart and soul into it, and most of the time, like you were saying, like 99% of the time, it amounts to nothing,
Mm-hmm.
because that's just the way it is, unfortunately. But when you get lucky and you kind of, we just got lucky. We had the right idea at the right time, and there was the right amount of, it was the right partnership between, Greg and Dan and Ben and, Mike and Rob and everybody that was involved in the production, all my, people from Maryland. Um, it just worked out right. You know what I mean? And I think that's, we really did catch lightning in a bottle. You know what I mean? But I think, yeah, I mean, I think, we're all have abilities. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think any of us are, like Martin Scorsese or anybody who like is truly like super gifted, but who knows, we still, I mean, hopefully have some years left
Mm-hmm.
to create stuff. But I like, again, man, the idea that for me, like just having Blair Witch is such a huge part of my life, and I feel so fortunate to have been a part of it. That and Dan and I, we would always talk about when we were doing the press tour. We're like, this is never going to happen to us again. You know what I mean? Like this is it, and we realized that. I don't think any of us came out of Blair Witch thinking that that we were going to make another Blair Witch the following summer. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. So
So
after kind of, well, I wouldn't say it died down, but when things started to kind of calm down after the release,
mhm.
you what happened from that point then um when you wouldn't come on board with the sequel and stuff and they were pushing to release it, within a year and stuff like that, what did you just take some time off, kind of try and get over
Well,
what just
I mean
happened?
that it really was a weird, the after effects of Blair Witch. The first few years were you know a cool, a great time because we were experiencing new things and we were learning stuff, but it was a really weird, painful time. And we, technically, like, what we did was we did Blair Witch, and then Dan Myrick and I didn't want to do another horror movie. Like we had, you know, I don't think neither of us were like horror. I think Dan had a pretty good idea for another horror movie. But none of, we didn't really have like this. I think a lot of filmmakers that make horror movies are really into horror and they have 3 or 4 horror scripts ready to go, as soon as you succeed. Dan and I didn't have that. I mean, we had other scripts, but they weren't horror movies. So, and people were just basically, wanting a horror movie from us. And that's the last thing we wanted to do. So we set off to try to kind of, break, like, we felt that the only way to kind of break the mold on Blair Witch, or like to come back from Blair Witch, is to do something completely different than Blair Witch, like something stupid, not that Blair Witch was like a work of genius or whatever, but something really like a dumb movie. We wanted to make a comedy. We wanted to make something that was silly and like
Mm-hmm.
outlandish and offensive. Like we were big fans of Monty Python and Saturday Night Live and Naked Gun, the Airplane,
Yeah,
like,
yeah, yeah,
those
yeah. Yep.
movies, and we set out to write this script called Heart of Love, which was like the stupidest title we could come up for the movie. And the story of Heart of Love is, a tale of it's a tragedy, nothing huge, but it fell apart for various reasons. Dan and I, for the first time since we had met in film school, were having, collaborative issues. Um, we were involved, we were kind of scattered ourselves. Like Greg went on to do the television stuff with Dave Goyer, the aforementioned Freaky Links. And the rest of us kind of stayed and worked on Heart of Love. But we were a little rudderless, or a lot rudderless. For the first time, I think, in our lives, especially in my life, I had like money, I had a little bit of money. So, I was able to like enjoy life and not be stressed out about, where my rent was coming from. And I was able to like get married and start thinking about having a family and, all this stuff. So I think life got in the way also, but it was a few years of just like, you know, one foot in the filmmaking world and one foot completely out of the filmmaking world. And I think that, looking back on that time, I mean, obviously, hindsight is 2020. Definitely would have done things differently. But I think, it happened for a reason. And during that time, Artisan was going to distribute Heart of Love, but it ended up being where they kind of used it um, mostly as leverage to try to get us to make another Blair Witch movie.
Right. Okay.
And there was another opportunity to do the prequel that we turned down. And I think at that point, I think that was one of the big, if you wanted, for me, like if you wanted to point to one moment in time where we should have, zigged when we zagged, it was that time. I think, I remember that they offered us, a pretty good amount of money to do the prequel, and this is after Book of Shadows. And then they would
Was this
basically
long
let us do
after
the
Book of
prequel, and
Shadows?
then right after the prequel, we could go into Heart of Love. And, I was, I guess, 31 at the time, and Dan wasn't much older. And we had this Heart of Love script that we really actually did love. We were very excited about it. And we kind of were like, yeah, we don't, we can always go back to Blair Witch, what I mean? So we said no. And I think at that point, things started going really south. And then 9/11 happened, and, the whole world went into kind of a shock. And that was it, and then eventually the partnership kind of broke up. And then eventually Greg and I kind of got back into each other's radar and started working together. And we did, a few. Rob came back in, and we did Altered, and we did Seventh Moon, we did
Yeah. So how
Lovely
did how
Molly.
did how did Altered come about?
Altered was, this was, almost 5 years after Blair Witch, but I got a script called Probed by this writer named Jamie Nash, and this producer named Jeff Johnson had sent it to me, who had been involved in a lot of the Blair Witch stuff, a lot of the early fan stuff. He was like one of the original major fans of the movie. And he sent me the script, and I was for the first time since Blair Witch, I was like really I was like, I really saw the movie and I really loved it, the script, and I was like, wow, this is really cool. And then it turned out that Jamie lived like 45 minutes from me, which is, I live on, the East Coast of the United States, near DC. And it's not, I mean, there is filmmaking here, but it's not like, filmmakers and screenwriters, like, this is not like a filmmaking hub, you know what I mean? So it was kind of weird that this guy that I really loved, whose writing I really loved, lived near my house. So we met and we became friends, and we started working on, just kind of, I thought it was more of a comedy than it was. I mean, there's a lot of comedy in it, so I kind of wanted to make it a little darker. So we started working on the script, and then eventually I sent it to Greg, and Greg really loved it. And then Greg brought in Rob Cowie, who was, another original member of the Blair Witch team. And then Mike Manello was also involved, I think, in the marketing, but it was kind of like a reunion. Dan was the only one that he was doing his own stuff in LA, and it was kind of like, I mean, we knew I knew that I wanted to direct it. So I don't, we didn't really, there was, there wasn't a clear space for the whole team, for everybody to come back. But we went out and, we raised the money. Rob and some people went out and raised the money, and we made this movie. And, that's how it happened. We shot it in Orlando. It was a lot of fun, and it was very stressful. And learned a lot.
It that's and I feel like, and I don't mean this in a disrespectful way. I think I actually mean it more as a kind of a compliment. But a lot of people don't actually, I think, know of much of these other like incredible movies you've been involved in.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely.
I would
man,
consider
because,
Altered one.
yeah.
It's I think it's absolutely fantastic, and
Oh,
I
uh,
I kind of like the idea in a way that maybe it didn't go down the route of, oh hey, it's the Blair Witch guy again. It's
yeah,
another Blair Witch movie thing. Come and see it.
yeah,
I kind of like that.
yeah. Yeah, man. I mean, I'm super proud of my films. I mean, I think there are better films than others. And but I put my heart into each one of my films, and none of them has had any kind of really commercial success like Blair Witch, but I think that they're decent. There's some, like I said, there's some that are better than others, and I think Altered for me was like, um, it took me a while to get back like kind of the confidence and like just the motivation to just get off my ass and make another movie after Blair Witch. And it was a great experience. I mean, the release was very frustrating because it went straight to video, but it did, it has gotten, a very substantial cult following, and I get, people, all the time, such as yourself, who yeah, there's a general consensus that the only movie people know of mine is Blair Witch, and that's fine. Like for me, it's like, well, if you had some commercial success, then people would know of other movies. But I do get enough kind of love, and enough people come to me for all my films and say, oh, I love this one. And oh my God, this one's really underrated. And Altered is kind of one of the, like, almost at the top of the list, where people are like, they really love this movie. And yeah, and I think it was a great, first collaboration between Jamie and me. And it was a great collaboration also, Greg and Mike and Rob, we all kind of, came back together and, and did this movie. And unfortunately, it didn't do what we wanted it to do. But I think for us, artistically, it was and socially, I guess you want to, if you want to use that word, it was a great experiment for us, because it definitely was, it was a fun movie. And I, once it came out and people started seeing it, there's definitely a lot of people who really loved the movie. And I love that, because I'm a big fan of the movie as well. I think, the performances are solid, and I think it was, it's kind of a weird little film, which I think people, and I think that's kind of the strange thing about it is the idea that like you and kind of lessons that I've learned as a filmmaker is that, like what we were talking about before, is the idea that like, you explain everything. Like there is a formula for, for horror. There is a commercial formula for horror. There's a commercial formula for action. There are commercial formulas, and they change throughout the years. Um, and I think that part of being like a successful commercial filmmaker is kind of balancing, the commercial formula with, the uniqueness that you can bring to that commercial formula. And I think as far as a filmmaker, like I think that my films are all pretty unique, but I think that the commercial formula, even Blair Witch, like, obviously now you look at it and you're like, oh yeah, it has a great commercial formula, but really it doesn't. It's a movie that, was shot on video and it looks like crap, and you know what I mean? Like it's a
Yeah,
weird.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
not like people who said, oh yeah, this is going to be the next big thing. People didn't nobody thought it was going to do what it did. So for me, like, making a horror movie has always, or making a movie has always been about bringing something really unique to the table. Until recently, I've kind of shunned away the commercial, um, not trappings, but the commercial kind of aspects you know, of the films I make. You know what I mean? And I think working in television and having, none of my films really blow up theatrically or, kind of make waves after Blair Witch has taught me that, that if you want to have commercial success, you have to play that game. You have to play in that arena. You have to learn how to play in that arena. And some of the great filmmakers, Spielberg and, James Cameron. I mean, there's filmmakers that know how to do it, you know what I mean? And obviously you see their films, there are some people that are really great at it. And I think for me, like, I think, I gravitate towards really unique and kind of non-commercial ideas. But I think now, like, the whole idea is that, I want to be I definitely want to be a more successful filmmaker, not because I want to make more films, and so there is kind of a formula that I've been, you know, kind of working on. And I think, when I make my next film, it will have, I will have grown as a filmmaker and also just kind of be more honest about, the projects that I'm choosing. Like, do I want this to have a successful run, or, be honest with yourself as far as like the commercial aspects and the commercial possibilities of this, the stuff that I'm making. So, like I would like, so, you kind of change the goal, so the goal now, I think for me as a filmmaker to make films is to make a commercial film, um, I don't think that making something like really obscure and something that has very little limited, possibilities is something that I would do, that I would do again right now. You know what I mean? But so anyway, you learn, and every time I do a TV show, I learn stuff. There's so many talented people out there, and you learn every day from actors and directors of photography and script supervisors and people all around you that kind of that they show you new things, and that's, I think this, it's what keeps me so excited about doing television, and is that I'm working a lot. I'm definitely I direct a lot, and I think like everything else, the more you do it, the better you become at it, or the more knowledgeable you become at it. So I'm very excited to make another horror movie, or to make another movie generally speaking, but because I have all these lessons,
Yeah,
lessons that I've
yeah.
learned from the non-commercial success of my previous films, and also just a lot of knowledge that I've acquired during my television career, for the last 5 years. So I'm definitely anxious to get back, and do a feature. But I'm also, again, really excited about the television possibilities that are happening for us right now.
I guess as regards the feature films, it's kind of a weird place to be in because, I mean, I think with something like Altered, maybe if you had been given $20 million, I don't know if it would have been the movie it was. And I don't even
Yeah.
necessarily mean in a good way. Um,
Yeah.
I think the idea, the direction that the movie went, it worked. Like it worked perfectly, and I'm just not sure. Now, maybe I'm completely wrong, but I'm not sure if the people who love that movie as much as they do would have liked it if you hadn't been
Yeah. No,
given
no.
twenty million
I mean,
dollars.
look, and it's not like it's not just budget though. Like I think you're right. I mean, obviously, a $20 million version of Altered would have been a different film for
Mm-hmm.
sure. And like I said, like I wouldn't change anything about Altered. I mean, obviously, as the filmmaker, you go back and you're like, oh, I should have done this, and you learn stuff. And sometimes you're like, maybe we should have edited this, or maybe I should have gone handheld here, or I should have done this, whatever. But generally speaking, I'm proud of the movie, and I think we did. It was a nice collaborative effort, and the actors did a great job. I think it's shot really well. It's a good film. It's a good little horror film. You know what I mean? A weird kind of sci-fi horror mix. And I think you're right. I think the people that really love Altered would not have liked the bigger budget, Tom Cruise version of
Yeah, yeah,
Altered. But it's more, it's not really just budget though. It's more about like, you know, um, just commercial aspects of stuff. Like in Altered, like to make Altered a little more commercial. Maybe, I would have laid off a little bit of the molestation kind of stuff. You know what I mean? The
yeah.
kind of the dark past. And maybe I would have made it, like more, kind of more have more jump scares, or, I'm saying, like there's certain things that you can do to like, make a film more commercial. But like you said, I think Altered is what it is, and I wouldn't change really anything about it. But now, the way I approach movies is a little bit different than I approached back then. Now just my approach is a little more like, okay, I want to tell a unique story, but I also want the movie to
It needs to
succeed.
include these
And
things, yeah, or leave
yeah,
out certain
and
aspects.
just I want it to be successful. I want to be able to make another movie after this, and I think that's the goal. Um, at this point.
Yeah, yeah. You mentioned Tom Cruise there, and it just got me thinking of. I just rewatched Four Corners of Fear. Um, oh, dude, like I laughed so hard. I had seen it
Yeah.
a couple of years ago, and I kind of forgot about it, and I was just like online. I was just looking through stuff, and I came across it again. That I think a lot of people, if anybody doesn't know what that is, just search it and watch it from start to finish in one sitting.
Yeah.
What where did that come about, or why?
It was, um, but first of all, it's like, Four Corners of Fear, just to kind of, is basically this, it was like before Blair Witch 3, but it was like, the original, like me, Mike, and Josh get back together to do another Blair Witch movie, and the studio's giving us a bunch of money, but it's all going to hire Tom Cruise, because Tom Cruise wants to do a Blair Witch movie. So that's kind of the premise, and we use this this impersonator named Evan Ferrante, who is like brilliant
Oh, he's
Tom
so
Cruise,
good.
who you've seen. I mean, he's basically the most famous Tom Cruise impersonator out there right now. You can see his videos all over the place. But it was just the absurd notion of Tom Cruise being in a Blair Witch movie. It's just like the antithesis of Blair Witch. So I think Mike Williams had met Evan somewhere, and Mike, I think, pitched. Who was like, "Oh my God, dude, I met this guy, and look, he does a great Tom Cruise," and we were like just spitballing about, imagine if Tom Cruise was another Blair Witch movie. So, that got the wheels spinning, and we got Josh involved, and we tried to get Heather involved, and she was, I don't know what happened, that she didn't want to be involved. Um, and the idea was like, we'll just shoot it over a weekend. So we flew, Josh from LA, and we brought Mike over. Mike came from New York. He drove down, and we basically shot it in the woods behind my house. And it's, like it's a ridiculous, like like shooting a movie with Tom Cruise, like, it's just silly. It's just really silly. But I had a great time doing it, and it really has, like, it's like the closest I've been since Blair Witch to doing actually Heart of Love, which was, like the follow up to Blair Witch that I was talking about.
Hmm.
Just doing comedy, like stuff that when I was in film school, that was really what I wanted to do. I wanted to do kind of like action, and I wanted to do comedy. Like those were really my sweet spots. But it was just so much fun,
I
and
would
um, you know,
after watching it twice, I would really like to see that. I would love to see a comedy or something like that from you. I
yeah,
think
no, I mean,
everybody's kind of
and that's
maybe.
one of the things like I'd love to do. Like I have this comedy called Sinkhole 2,
Hmm.
um, which is about a sentient sinkhole. And it's another kind of Heart of Love-ish type of, just silly movie with like bad jokes and a lot of sight gags and just, and it's stupid sinkhole stuff. So, that's one of the movies that I'm trying to develop right now, trying to get the money for. So, I mean, I think eventually, hopefully I'll get into more comedy. I'm also try to do a little more comedic television. Um, I'm up for more like, a little bit veering away from the horror television stuff, which is, cool for me. But yeah, man, it was Four Corners was just this great little project that, we all came together and, shot and it was fun, man. And, yeah,
Yeah, I could see that.
I highly
I would
recommend it.
really like because I think sometimes you maybe you get trapped in a corner a little bit as like the horror guy or
Oh,
the
absolutely,
found
man.
footage guy or the Blair Witch guy or
Yeah.
whatever. And like I just there was there was little things in there, glimmers of like I would love to see someday, like something that you're really passionate about in comedy or something like that.
Yeah,
I think
yeah.
that would
No,
be
me
cool.
too, man. I definitely, it's definitely something that I think about a lot.
I just wanted to backtrack a little bit because I came across a movie that I actually had no idea about until maybe a month ago, which is
Hmm.
Seventh Moon.
Oh, right.
Yeah, that and to be honest, there's not really much out there. Um, I couldn't get it on DVD. I couldn't get a stream. I couldn't get anything. Um, I don't know whether it's just because I'm in this part of the world or. But how did that project or?
I think it's on iTunes, which I don't know
Yeah, it
if the,
shows up, but it doesn't show up for uh, iTunes in Ireland for some reason.
you know, it's weird because, it's like the, it's weird how licensing works. Um, you know, but sometimes, like even in Canada, you can, like I work in Canada a lot, and Netflix is different in Canada than it is here, and it's
Yeah,
different. Even Amazon is different. So I'm not sure what the licensing is. But I mean, it should be. I mean, it's probably on, definitely on Amazon on DVD. You could probably get it. If I have no spares, or I would send you one.
because I know the US Amazon has it. I actually have some family in New York. Maybe they can get me
Yeah.
one, but Amazon UK doesn't have it. eBay doesn't
Yeah, I
have
mean,
it.
it was definitely a movie that, like, you know, didn't get, again, a lot of exposure, and I think the distributor that distributed it kind of shit it out, really. Um, and unfortunately, it was one of those movies that it happened right when we shot it right during the economic collapse.
Hmm.
Shot it right before, so when we went to market, I think it was marketed, I think in 2008, I think, right when the collapse, or 2007, we shot it, and then we went to sell it in 2008. And unfortunately, the video market tanked, and it was just kind of like just lost. Didn't get any kind of wide release. It did some festivals, and I mean, it was kind of one of those movies, again, like all my movies, that some people love and some people really hated. But it's definitely a weird movie, man.
Yeah,
Um,
like how was that for you? Or how did you first get? How did that all come about?
it was Seventh Moon was it takes place in China,
Hmm.
and it was an opportunity. I met this. I had met actually through Neil Fredericks, the DP of Blair Witch. Um, he was married to a woman named Anne Liu, who was from China originally and was a filmmaker, and or is still a filmmaker, talented filmmaker, and she had an opportunity to do some movies in China, and she, like a slate of movies, and mostly horror movies, and so we were like, yeah, let's, she brought me on board, and I came up with this kind of idea, very simple idea, um, about this, like this couple that's traveling to China. They're honeymooning in China. The husband is from China. His family was from China, so he's taking his new American wife to meet his Chinese family, and they get lost and they get trapped. And there's this thing called the Hungry Ghost Festival, that is happening. That's actually a real festival in China where all this. It's kind of like the Halloween of China, and so these things start coming out and start chasing them, and it's kind of a really harrowing, very claustrophobic, very dark movie, like visually dark.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And it was one of these things where, again, like, and it got, surprisingly some good reviews when it came out, but it just didn't, again, like, I think that it wasn't promoted properly, and it did some festivals, and, like, again, like, I think certain people love it, certain people hate it. But it's definitely a weird movie. It's all really handheld and super shaky, and um, it's edited kind of, has a unique editing style. The soundtrack again was from Tony Cora and this composer named Kent Sparling, who did like this really creepy, weird soundtrack. And again, it's one of these movies where I just kind of went off the deep end on one side of the equation of the filmmaking horror film equation. I had this vision and I wanted to see it happen and move forward, and luckily we were able to do it. And it was a weird shoot. We shot it in Hong Kong, and it takes place mostly at night, so it was a really kind of depressing night shoot, for all of us. And it was a really kind of it was great to shoot something in Hong Kong. My family went over there. My two kids were there, and it was fun. It was a great
Yeah,
experience.
it
And
looks like a really interesting movie. It's something that I'm definitely going to track down somewhere. If anybody
yeah,
knows
man,
where I can get a
if I
copy.
actually, why don't you email me your address, and I'll find you a copy and ship it to you.
Cool, man. Cool. It's again, like, I feel like some of that maybe ends up like this because they well, I feel like maybe you had a hand in that as well. You didn't try and use it's the Blair Witch guy. Here's another movie. And kind of like what you're saying, where you went off the deep end. Like, I mean, you go deep in the projects, and sometimes
Yes,
it
yeah, yeah,
doesn't.
yeah. Like, I mean, I mean, yeah, it definitely, and especially the movie that afterwards, Lovely Molly, that I did. Like,
Yep.
I really, I mean, for me, horror is like comes from a really personal place, like, of like real fear and kind of like childhood trauma. Not that my childhood was bad, but every childhood has trauma, because just as you learn the things you fear, and the world is a scary place. Um, so they all come from a really like kind of personal place, and I think sometimes it's a little, I take it too far. Um, but it's just it's another thing that I've kind of learned throughout the years. But these early movies were, probably I went a little too far, one way or the other.
Yeah, yeah. But I mean, I think it will all come full circle eventually. But I think a lot of people respect the idea that I think you could have probably lived out the rest of your filmmaking career on the coattails of, hey, look, I'm the Blair Witch guy again.
Yeah.
And I kind of like that. And I mean, it's not a dig at anybody else, but you do see that with some people. They have a little bit of a hit, and they kind of just ride out on that alone. You don't see much passion, much energy put into anything. It's just like, oh, hey, look, I've got another movie, or I've got a box set, or I've got this.
Yeah. Yeah, man. I mean, I think, there's definitely different, you know, there's different kinds of filmmakers, and there's different, obviously, there's different people, but yeah, I think that there is, you know, sometimes that, yeah, I see that too. Sometimes you just kind of, people are making almost the same film over and over again. Um, and for me, that was like, um, one of the early things that I set out to do was, trying not to make, the same movie again, trying to expand with each film and do something different and try different techniques. And and obviously, like you were saying, you kind of get stuck in a genre, especially in the horror genre. You get stuck a little bit, and you're like, okay, it has to be a horror movie. But I do love the horror genre because it is very diverse in in the number of subgenres that it has. So it's a great space to be stuck in.
Yeah, like
The
I mean,
horror
even
genre.
even with the segment in VHS two, like that's something that I think a lot of people would have loved to have seen a feature of just that segment.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
like, there's so many, and like I guess it's found footage again in a way, but it felt fresh, new. I
Yeah.
think, and a lot of people like that.
Yeah, yeah, no, it did. I mean, that was, and that's mostly Jamie, he just came up with this really cool idea, and Greg and I, um, you know, executed it well. And yeah, and we actually, that was one of the big things was like, could you do a feature version of this? Um, but I think, it just never materialized. But yeah, I think that the early kind of thoughts to that was like, man, you could do a pretty cool feature with this.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know if it was because Jamie couldn't, maybe we couldn't crack it, or maybe it was, we didn't want to do another found footage feature. Um, different reasons, I think. But yeah, I mean, I love that short. I love the whole movie, but I love that short, and I think it was such a clever idea, and it was fun to shoot because we shot it locally here in Maryland, so it was near my home, so it was it was great, man. It was a cool experience to shoot here in Frederick, where I live, and and that's kind of with the thing, like, eventually what I would love to be able to do and is to bring a television show to Maryland. Um, that would really be like kind of
Yeah.
the ultimate for me, as far as, uh, being able to work out of my house and being able to sleep in my own bed. That would be, that would be quite a luxury.
Yeah, because I guess that's another thing that gets overlooked quite a bit is travel and being away from home, and especially, I mean, being as passionate as you are about your projects and stuff. I mean, there's times you have to
Yeah,
travel to
no,
the
I
other
mean,
side of the world.
that's the whole thing, man. Is that there is this, it takes a lot of time to work in this business. There's a reason why, like, a lot, this business is really brutal on relationships, and I think it's hard to raise a family in this business because you, like you said, you're away a lot, um, and luckily I was able to stay at home most of the time. During, I have three kids, and while they were little, I was basically home as much as my wife. And so I definitely put in the time with the kids. And and there is a sacrifice, man. Like, making films, unless you're like somebody who has the control to like bring a movie to where they are. You're usually on location, usually, far away from home, and you're, most of the time, obviously, when your kids are older, they're not going to come, they have school and they have their own lives. So it's not like you can bring your kids with you. And also just filmmaking in general, it takes a long time. You work long days, And to have any kind of sustainable, career, you have to constantly work. It seems like as soon as you back away from anything, people are like, hey, where's he been? What happened to you? It's like, well, I'm
Yeah.
just taking a little break. I'm not
Yeah.
going anywhere, but it's
And do you think that's the key to that? I know a lot of people like kind of ask that question, and I guess like you've kind of pointed out, filmmaking it does have a huge commitment and strain, but just I guess in general for people who maybe want to make that jump towards their dream, whatever it might be, whether it's film or whatever.
yeah.
i-
um
what would you say the key is in something like that? Like I talk to so many people who
yeah.
have these like I guess crazy aspirations and dreams. I mean, it's crazy to think that people nowadays would say, "Oh, I wish I was like Ed," or "I wish I could do what Ed done." And
Yeah.
like, what do you think the key, or how can people maintain relationships or some form of normal life, but also,
Dude, I mean,
I guess
you
it's
know,
situational.
for me, it's like, I was very fortunate that I was able to, we made a lot of money on Blair Witch, so I was able to stay home a lot and not have to, I didn't have to work a lot. But I think like for, like right now, like I go to these, television sets, and I work for basically 3 weeks. Home away about 3 weeks, which is hard, but you know, it's not that hard. It's not impossible. And also, my kids are a little older. I have one in college who's not even at home, so they can take care of themselves, and then my wife is always here taking care of them. So I definitely have. I'm blessed in that way as well. But I mean, I work with people, on these TV shows, who, like, the day that my episode ends, I'm so ready to get the hell out of there, and they just start the next episode the next day. I
Yeah,
mean, it
yeah,
really, the crew people, the people that like are there, full time, for 10 episodes or 12 episodes, or sometimes, 22 episodes if you're on a network. You're spending more time with the people at work than you are with your family, and you have to like somehow figure out a way to balance that out. Um, but some of the most successful people I know on television, when you talk to them, you know, they're like, I'm really happy that I'm doing this and I feel blessed, but they know that they've sacrificed, a lot of time with their family. That's just the way it is, man. You can't help it. It's just basic math. You know what I mean?
yeah, yeah.
You only have a certain number of of hours in the day. And I wish that our business were different. Like, I wish that we had more normal days. Um, because like, and I wish that you know that oh, because there's a lot of, I mean, I'm fairly lucky, because I haven't worked for any real, you know, tyrant or people who like really work their crews to death, to
Mm-hmm.
not literal death, but there's
Yeah,
some
no,
there's
I
some
know.
there's some producers in some studios or networks or whoever it is. Like, there's certain shows that, like, you're doing really long days all the time, crazy days, and they take you, they start on Fridays late, in the day, and you have to work till like Saturday morning, and then you have 2 days off, but you really don't have 2 days off. You get home on Saturday, you have to sleep, so, and then you have to be back in at 7 a.m. on Monday morning. You know what I mean? Like, so it's a brutal business. You know what I mean? For production, for the production side of it. So my advice to people is that first you have to really love it. Like my daughter is like, I was talking to you before, like, she's not really sure about what she wants to do, and she likes the whole idea of being a script supervisor. Like, she thinks that she could be a good script supervisor, and I think she could be a good script supervisor. But you know, sh I need to get her on a set. I want to get her on a set, with me, or or somewhere where she can learn, and she can realize how many hours you have to put into this business, to the job, and I think so. You have to love it. Like, the people that I work with on sets are the most amazing people, because they are working their asses off. And it's very rare that I work with a crew where even one member does not work his or her ass off all the time. I mean, and eagerly work their asses off, so, um, you have to be that kind of person or else you're not going to make it. You have to be the person who just loves to be on set, to loves to be in production, just loves everything about it. And you can see the twinkle in people's eyes, man. It's a very strange thing, but you can see people who like wouldn't want to be anywhere else, yet they're working like crazy hours and they don't have a personal life. And so, it's definitely rewarding, but you have to be ready to do that. And then obviously there are other ways, to be in the business, as far as being a writer or doing what I do, which is, directing. So I'm not, I rarely work full time. I work for 3 weeks and then I take a couple weeks off and then I, go back and work. And, and it's very rewarding. You meet a lot of people and you learn a lot. You make pretty good money and, you can balance your life pretty well. But, like I said, I'm blessed. I have a lot of people that help me out. My wife, my kids are very understanding, and my wife, holds down all the things that happen here. A lot of people don't have that, luxury. So it's a difficult, position to be in. But obviously, as a writer or director, you can kind of set your own hours, especially as a writer. Um, if you're just writing kind of spec scripts or whatever. But you have to love it, man, because I mean, even if you become a writer, if you luck out and you become a writer on a television show, which is, a full-time job, you're still going to be working, really long hours. It's just the kind of the way. And I wish, there was a way to like limit the hours, like, do more, just,
Yeah, I think sometimes like people get confused and they want to be in the movie business or whatever. Now I think it's going away a little bit, but I mean I've even seen with myself on a way, way, way smaller scale is, I wanted to, I guess, professionally blog, if you want to call it, or write for movie websites and stuff. And
yeah,
it did start out of passion, but then I won't say the name of the site. It's over this side of the pond, but I actually signed a contract with them, and then it just became miserable and just. I think and a little bit of it was like kind of what you alluded to. It felt like I was working for a tyrant, and just
yeah. I
the
mean,
passion
that's
went, the
that's the
energy
thing.
went.
That's the thing that happens too, man, is that people don't realize that when it's a different, it's like everything in life, man. When you're doing it, like if you're it's a different vibe when you're on on an indie movie set, and you're not, even if you're not getting paid, but you're like, oh, you're in film school and you're making it, and there's like this, oh my God, I love doing this, whatever.
Yeah.
But on those sets, there's always the option that like, well, they're not paying me, so I can walk away if I want. If you really don't like it, you always have that option of just like, saying, no, I can't do it this weekend. Find somebody else. Because you're really doing people a favor. And like everything else, once you start making money, once you like you were saying, like once you sign the deal, once you sign the contract, it does change. And you have to be ready for that. It becomes a job, no matter how much you love it. Like, no matter how much I love directing, there are things that I hate about my job.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So, I think people, you're right. I think, especially in the film business, have a level of kind of fantasy. There's like a fantasy filmmaking, like, oh, I want to be, J.J. Abrams, and I want to be this and whatever. And I'm like, well, do you understand that the life that J.J. Abrams has? I mean, I'm sure he has a great life, and he wouldn't change it for anything. But how many hours a day does J.J. Abrams work? Or how many hours a day does what kind of lifestyle do these people have? And is that the lifestyle that are you sure you want that? You know what I mean? And not to bring, I don't know JJ, so I have no idea what, his lifestyle is, but he must be a very busy guy. You know what I mean? And you have to realize that with those, with those kinds, like to have that kind of career, you have to basically, devote almost your whole life to that career. You know what I mean? You have to be
Yeah.
ready to do that, So, it's just like every other job, man. You have you have, there's things you love about your job and there's things you hate about your job. And I think being a filmmaker, whether you're a writer or a director or working on set or an actor or any level, you're going to have good days and bad days, and you're going to have things that you love about it. And you're going to have things that you hate about it. So you have to be ready for that, be realistic. And I would tell people, like, if you just, try to, get an internship, try to get on a real set, and there's so much production these days that, I mean, you'll probably have to move somewhere to like some production hub,
Yeah.
but, even before film school or, after film school or whatever, I mean, if you show up and you're ready to work, people are going to give you work, you might have to work for free for a little while, but, get on a set or, get in an office and, go there and work the long hours and see how you feel about it. 'Cause you might hate it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think sometimes people think, oh, I might not like it because, if I were getting paid for this, it would be different. Not necessarily.
Exactly.
Sometimes, and like you
Exactly.
said, it can be much worse
Yeah.
because you don't have the option. You've signed in
Yeah.
blood, basically.
Exactly, man. That's the whole, yeah, exactly. Like, like really, like for me, it's like, if you really want to know what it's like to be a filmmaker, is get on a set and, work a shitty job, for, try to get as long a job as possible and see how you feel. I mean, you might hate it and you might be like, oh my God, I never wanted, like my partner, Greg, um, went to film school with, we went to film school and we weren't like real close friends, but we knew each other in film school. And after film school, he moved to LA and he was doing his own movies, but also he became a set dresser and joined the union, or I think was about to join the union, or, was basically a successful set dresser making pretty good money, on big shows. And he was basically about to go down that road, like he said, I think he was about to sign in the union or about to do something that would have basically locked him in for a while. And he went to go see Brazil, Terry Gilliam's, or no, 12 Monkeys, I think he went to see 12 Monkeys, and he came out of that movie and was like, I want to make movies. I don't want to be a set dresser, but not that there's anything wrong with that, but
Mm-hmm.
some people don't have that epiphany, I mean, some people get into it and they love what they do. And like I said, I meet so many people who, most of the people I work with on television, love their jobs. But so, and then Greg went off and, he moved back to Orlando. And then that's when we started, collaborating with Dan on Blair Witch, and heard about Blair Witch and, kind of joined the team, and, the rest is history. But so, there's different paths. Just because you go and you work on a set doesn't mean that's what you're going to be doing for the rest of your life, but
Yeah,
I
it's
think to
about
get the
finding.
experience and just to get the feeling of like, okay, this is what it feels like to have a 9 to 5 job in the film business, and
Mm-hmm.
it either sucks and I never want to do it, or, oh my God, I love it. This is what I want to do
Yeah.
for the rest of my life. So
Yeah, I guess I think that's really good advice. Is, I mean, if you're willing to do something for free, you can kind of gauge from there then whether it's something
yeah,
that.
I mean, obviously don't let yourself get, exploited too much,
Yeah.
but the thing is that I think there's so much work now, there's so much television work that, like, like I tell people, like Atlanta, like it's, it's about, an 8-hour drive south of me, of where I live.
Mm-hmm.
And there's so much production going on there. And I tell people, whether you're an actor or whether you're, a PA or whatever you want to be, go to Atlanta and see if you can get a job, on a set somewhere. There's so much stuff going on. You'll probably get a paid job. If you're around long enough and you're cool and you're competent, people feel that you're a hard worker. I mean, you got to put the work in, obviously. But there are a lot of opportunities out there. There's a lot of television being shot right now. So there's never been a better time to get into the film or television business. There's so much more work right now than there ever has been. But it's a real job, and like we talked about before, you gotta see if it's for you. It's not for everybody.
Yeah, no, I can imagine. It was something that cropped up. Multiple people had had asked me about that, like what the process of. I think what you're saying, like a lot of people have fantasy of, oh, I want to be a director, or I want to be in Hollywood.
Yeah, and if you want to be a director, then direct. If you want to be a writer, write. I would, there's never been a better time to make short films. You can actually get them, out there. Now they have to be really great to be able to break through the clutter of how many movies are out there. But you'll definitely see if you're talented or not. You know what I mean? But there's there's just so many different ways to get into the business. But the first thing is that you have to like come up with some kind of plan. That meets kind of your your financial abilities, your financial resources, and also just your be honest with yourself. If you're be honest with yourself. If you haven't written anything that people love, maybe you're not a writer. And if your films just don't work, then maybe you're not a director.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
plenty of other things to do that you can still be very fulfilled with. Whether it's film or television or art or Broadway or stage, behind the scenes on stages. There's a lot of stuff in the entertainment business, that you can kind of sink your teeth into. Don't just think that it's just one job out there.
Yep. What are you? So I'm not sure if you can say, but what are you currently working on, or what gets you? I guess I know TV at the minute is kind of where you want to
I'm doing
go.
a lot. I'm doing a lot of TV. I'm about to head to New Orleans, unless it seems like there's some coronavirus shutdowns going on. So I'm not sure if people are going to postpone their seasons, or I'm not sure what's going to happen. But I'm supposed to head down to New Orleans next week to do another episode of Queen of the South.
Nice.
And then we are developing a show with Apple right now. That we're pretty excited about. Can't really tell you anything about it. And we're still in the very early stages of it. So, who knows what'll happen with it. And we've never developed a show with Apple. So, but we're pretty excited about it. It's an idea that Greg and I came up with Alejandro Brugues, who's a Cuban filmmaker, who's partnered up with some stuff on us with some stuff, and then we have a Quibi. I don't know if you've heard of Quibi, the new streaming service.
Yep.
That's coming out I think next month. We did an episode of a show for them. That's their whole thing is like short little clips. So I think our short is like 15 minutes long.
Oh, nice.
But Greg wrote it and Alejandro directed it. And it's this cool little short that'll be part of a bigger show. I'm not sure when that's coming out. I don't know if it's coming out in April or when, but it's a pretty good little film that we did. And just developing a lot of stuff. As far as features are concerned, there's a couple of films, a couple of ideas that I'm pretty excited about that are being, close to getting shopped around. So, you always have to have, multiple irons in the fire. But right now, the biggest thing we have is, trying to, get our own television show on the air, and, hopefully that'll lead to other shows. And the main reason for that is, I think, obviously because we want to tell some stories, but also television gives us the opportunity to work with a lot of people that, you can't work with on the feature world, as far as like, new directors and writers and, different, directors of photography, like, different actors, like I think for us, it has, there's a lot of people that we've met throughout the years that are really talented, and we would just love to work with some of these people again, you know what I mean? And maybe give some people opportunities to direct some episodes and to write some episodes, and, you know, kind of get their, you know, see what, if they, you know, what they can do. So, you know, that's kind of part of the exciting thing about television as well, is, you know, and as, you know, obviously bringing a show to Maryland would be a dream come true. Being able to work with a lot of people, you know, a lot of the local people that, you know, have always supported me here. So, you know, you know, it's not only a financial and like kind of a business and creative thing, but it's also for us, it's kind of a social thing of like, you know, being able to work with people that we love, and, you know, whose work we love, that we don't get to work with, you know, often enough.
Is there a show out there, I guess, that maybe you haven't already or are currently or might do in the future? Is there a show that you would love to work on, or is there something?
I mean, dude, there's so many shows I would love to work on.
Yeah.
I've been trying to get on Walking Dead for years.
Nice.
You know,
Nice.
I know some of the producers, and my wife we're both big fans, and we visited the set a couple times, but I haven't gotten the call yet, unfortunately. And, you know, there's so many shows that I love, you know, like I'd love to do an Ozark. Um, I'd love to do more, you know, some stuff for Netflix. You know, I mean, for me, it's like kind of, you know, there's so many great shows right now.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, I think the top of it would be to do, you know, a Star Wars show, to do, you know, an episode of Mandalorian would be pretty damn cool.
Has there been any conversation or?
No, I mean, you know, I don't know how it works, man, but I mean, I think that I'm not really at the level of Mandalorian director yet. You know, I'm not sure exactly. You know, I'm not saying that I couldn't do it, you know, but I think first of all, there's probably hundreds of people in front of me that want to do it, obviously. But I think that there's, you know, it's who you know and who you've worked with, and, you know, so, you know, hopefully one day I'll get to the point where, you know, they'll consider me for an episode. But, you know, you kind of work in, there's like there's people that have comparable careers to me that do completely different shows than I do. And I always wonder, like, why do they get those shows and I get these shows? And, you know, not to like that some shows are better than others or whatever, but just, you know, it just works out that way, you know? But there's so many shows, like even I just did a Nancy Drew episode, and I really enjoyed myself, and they have a second season, so I look forward to maybe hopefully they call me back for, you know, an episode in the second season. So, you know, there's all, and, you know, the same thing with Queen of the South, you know, they hopefully I can, you know, come back and do some more episodes there. So, you know, there's a lot of you know, there's very rarely do I do a show that I don't want to go back and do, but there's so many shows that I love, you know.
I think that's kind of cool. I like the way you kind of not because I'm sure you could probably get plenty of work in the horror industry, but I kind of like the way you'll explore things that you're interested in, even if they're not necessarily in your wheelhouse or what everybody thinks is your wheelhouse.
Yeah. I mean, I think that like I said, it's like, I think variety is kind of the key to me, you know, for me, as far as like a filmmaker. Like I don't think I could make the same kind of thing over and over again. But I think, you know, most filmmakers feel like that, you know. I don't see too many filmmakers that want to make the same film over and over again. But yeah, I've been fortunate enough to, you know, especially in the last 5 years, to be able to work in a lot of different types of television shows, and work with, you know, a lot of super talented people. So, you know, I'm learning a lot, man.
Do you still collect Star Wars?
Of course.
Yeah. Is that still ongoing?
Yeah, man. It's you know, I love it, and I can't, like, you know, I can't get away from it. I'm selling some of the collection off, like just starting to sell some stuff on eBay, and I hope to continue to sell stuff, because I do have way too much stuff, and I have a lot of stuff that is just like I don't even really want, you know, like it's just taking up space, and but I do love it, man. I love.
Are you making room for something special?
They what?
Are you making room for something special or some more stuff? Or
no, not really. I mean, I don't have any room at all. So it's kind of it's down to like really small pieces, and I kind of made a rule where like if I can't display it, I don't buy it anymore. Like I don't
Mm-hmm.
buy stuff to store away anymore because I don't have any more room. Um, so that's kind of, you know, kind of kept me in check a little bit, but it's still a problem. It's still, you know, I'm spending money
Yeah,
and
I
also
know. I've got a
time, but
similar
I do
problem.
love it, man. It really does bring, it brings stress to my life, but also it brings a lot of joy. And
Yeah.
for some reason, I love all this plastic crap around me.
I'm in a similar position.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Just collecting from. I used to be a big wrestling guy,
Hmm.
and I recently got back into. I don't watch wrestling anymore, but collecting the figures.
Yeah.
Um, Now not modern day, like 15, 16 years ago.
Yeah.
Um, and like rebuying old figures
That,
and stuff, and I've got no idea why this has happened, but now I've gone down that wormhole.
yeah. It's a weird thing, man. And
Yeah.
it's mostly men too.
Mm-hmm.
Like I mean, there are women collectors, of course, but it definitely is more of like a male kind of thing of just like, because I've tried to, I constantly analyze like, what am I, why do I do this?
Mm-hmm.
Uh, but I don't know what it is, man. It's like there's something about it's about the about getting it, about the hunt. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
kind of thick.
Yeah.
It's definitely, I mean, it's definitely a sickness. It's definitely a psychological
Yeah, it is. It's like
disorder.
'cause some people ask me like, "What? I don't get it," and I'm like, it's kind of an addiction in a way. I mean,
Oh yeah, no, it's totally an addiction, man. Like
it's
even
definitely an addiction.
like for me, it's like when I have if I feel bad, like I go and see buy a little Star Wars thing or something. It's just like it's like therapy,
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
um,
100%.
and it's
Are you a guy who opens his collection?
yes, there. I mean, there's some stuff obviously you can't open, but yeah, most of the stuff I open, like that's kind of my rule is like I'm not buying anything these days that I can't open.
Yeah, I'm trying to I guess break the seal with that. I have like an entire room of horror movie memorabilia
Hmm.
and a lot of figures and stuff that probably aren't really worth that much money and are never going to be, but I have this thing where I've never opened them, and
Yeah.
now
I
I'm
mean,
trying to just.
I think you have to be smart because there's some like I'm really into pops, the
Uh-huh.
Funko Pops right
Yeah, me
now.
too.
So I'm like trying to get all of them, and I know that there's some that are, I mean, because there's some that are like thousands of dollars, and I'm like, I'm not gonna pay $1,000 for a fucking Funko Pop, at least not right now.
Yeah.
But the Star Wars ones, there's like almost 400 now, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And I have most of them, but you know, some of them like I just picked one up that was like $120, which is like the most expensive, and it was Canadian money, so I actually got a really good deal on it. But that one I was like, I'm not gonna open this one. I'm just gonna display it in the box. But most of all my stuff is out of the box, because I don't know, man. It just first of all, the boxes take up so much more room, and then secondly, I don't know, man. It just feels like I don't know. It feels a little less geeky when you take it out of the box.
Yeah, 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 yeah,
And you're
yeah.
right. There's some stuff that like is not going to be worth anything whether I keep the box or not. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Um, so
I actually
it,
somebody reached out to me during the week. I don't know if you have access to your email right now.
yeah, I do.
I'm just gonna send you this photograph that somebody sent me. Um, I don't know if you remember that. It's basically somebody reached out to me that had, I think he painted it, a piece of Star Wars art from a couple of years ago. Let me see if I can shoot this over to you.
Let me see. It hasn't come in yet. Um,
If it comes in, let me know. But yeah, just on the topic of pops, maybe there's a way we can figure it out or whatever. But I have in mind now a really cool exclusive, a European exclusive Star Wars pop that if we can figure it out, maybe I can send it to you or send it somewhere that you can that you can pick it up.
Oh yeah, man.
But yeah, collecting is a weird thing, and I kind of wanted to just get on the topic of it, just because I know that you have quite a huge collection. Do you have any Blair Witch stuff, or did you ever collect any of that stuff, or is that just something that you're not really?
No, I mean, I have some of the stuff. Like you know, I haven't bought stuff. I haven't bought anything Blair Witch in a long time. But when the movie came out, like um, people would send me stuff, and mostly it's magazines and kind of one of a kind stuff that people sent me. Um, but I bought the only thing that I bought that I really that I are kind of collectible are the I bought some of the original artwork from the comic book,
Oh yeah, yeah.
from the first comic book. I
I
bought
actually
like
have that sitting in
one
front of me right now.
panel from each of the stories. Um, and so I have them framed and they're up in my screening room. Um, so yeah, and I have like some Blair Witch posters from France and Spain, and you know um, I have a couple of fan made items that people have made for me. I have those things up, but yeah, mostly it's just stuff that personalized stuff that people send me.
Mm-hmm, yeah, that was something that somebody asked me to ask you. Did you have any crazy Blair Witch or any other of your movie, like crazy props
The
or?
the best Blair Witch thing, and kind of that I had, like, one of the best things is that this friend of mine, Chris Stavrakis, um, made me sculpted me this Yoda. He's a really good sculptor, but he sculpted me a Yoda holding a stick figure,
Oh,
and,
cool.
and kind of like
Nice.
like rubbing his chin, like kind of like this quizzical, like, what the hell is this?
Mm-hmm.
Um, I'll send you a picture of it, but
That's cool.
that's really cool. I love when you know Blair Witch stuff kind of mixes in with uh, with Star Wars, especially. And then also I have some stuff that because every time, usually when I go do a show, somebody always tries to sneak in some kind of Blair Witch thing into the show. So I have like certain, mostly from Supernatural, where like they've kind of mixed Blair Witch words or the Blair Witch symbol, or just kind of into props and stuff, and then
That's
they've
cool.
given
I
me the
like that.
props after I'm done with it. Like I have a big sign that says Rustin's, for Rustin Parr, which was a bar that they had in my first episode of Supernatural. And then I have I have a bottle of this. It's called Ellie's Brew, which is like Ellie
Mm-hmm.
Kedward's, like a beer that we also use on my first episode. Um, so it's fun to work with people like that who kind of want to put little Easter eggs and stuff into the episodes that I do. But that stuff I really love.
Yeah, yeah. The I had actually recently for the first time seen the. Have you ever seen the McFarlane toys, the Blair Witch ones? Was that
Yes.
something that, like, were you guys ever approached about that, or like, did you ever have a vision of if there was a witch, what she looked like, or any creatures and
Um,
stuff?
I mean, it wasn't. Uh, we I mean, we love. First of all, we love them. I mean, we were big Todd McFarlane fans, and I used to collect the Spawn figures because I love them so much. Um, so I was well aware of McFarlane stuff. So when Artisan said, "Oh, they're going to do a Blair Witch figure," and they ended up doing two. I mean, we were just really excited about it, man. And I think like for me, you know, any kind of there's no like proper you know there's no proper vision of the Blair Witch. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like for me, you know, that's why I really liked the Blair Witch movie that came out in 2016. Like, I like the fact that they pushed the mythology and they showed a little bit some creature or whatever the hell it was. I don't even know. I don't even know what it is. You know what I mean? Like for me, so the Todd McFarlane things for me were like, oh my god, this is cool.
Yeah,
And then
they're
we're like,
something
what
I want to get
is
my
the
hands on.
Blair Witch? I'm like, yeah, this could totally be the Blair Witch. I mean, it's not the only way she appears, but could totally be the Blair Witch, of course.
Yeah, it's something I would like. I would love to get my hands on those. They're quite hard to come by, actually.
Oh, are they? I didn't know that. Yeah,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
have. I have the one. I don't have both of them, but I have one of them.
Just from your saying there about the 2016 movie, have you? I know you've done some stuff online with the game. Did you actually play the game, or?
Yeah, yeah. I played. I mean, I played. I did some online. I played online in something last year. I don't know if you saw that, but
The
it was
Watch Mojo? Yeah, yeah.
yeah, I did that, and then um, I'm not like I used to like I play Minecraft because it's like kind of like a Lego set and it kind
Yeah,
of
yeah.
relaxes me.
Yeah, it's good.
But I felt that the Blair Witch game was way too stressful for me.
I could see
Um,
that, yeah. And I like my games and stuff, and I love my Blair Witch, but I can see that it's and the fact that without spoiling it, there's multiple endings and stuff.
yeah, no, I mean, I think the game was awesome,
Oh,
and
it's amazing. But
yeah,
I
I
do
loved
see
it, man,
that it is so
and there
stressful.
was so many times playing that game where I was like, yeah, like there's literally, you know, scenes in that game that like I've seen in my head already, like that were ideas that we had for other Blair Witch movies,
Mm-hmm.
like for sure.
Mm-hmm. And
Um, and I thought it was really well done. It was creepy, and I love the story, and it had, it was ambiguous enough to kind of fit into the Blair Witch legend, but it kind of had enough story to keep you engaged. Um,
did
and it
you
was
guys have any
beautiful,
involvement?
man. But it was just too stressful for me, man.
Yeah, I
Um,
could see that.
it's like it's not the way I want to spend my free time,
Mm-hmm.
um, it's a little, it's, yeah, it was, and maybe probably, it was probably too good for its own good, at least with me.
Yeah, like I like those games, but yeah, I could even see that. There was a couple of times I hit pause in the middle of something.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's
no,
tough.
yeah, it's it's way intense,
Mm-hmm.
and you
I'm
know,
surprised they didn't bring it to PlayStation VR. Actually, I see a
you
lot
know,
of
man,
people talking about that.
they're I don't know what the plans are, like especially if they do a TV show, I'm sure they're going to do more games, or I'm not sure what they're going to do, but yeah, I mean, a Blair Witch VR game is kind of a no-brainer,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Did you Did you have any involvement in the game as regards
No,
ideas or
no,
anything? They never.
not at all. I mean,
No.
in the first three games that came out
Yeah,
in,
yeah, yeah.
2000, we had not a lot of input, but they definitely ran a lot of stuff by us, and we kind of, were kind of more involved. But this last game, nah, they just kind of, we didn't even know that they were actually doing a game until much later in the process.
All right. Okay. Cool.
So,
Okay. So I don't want to take up too much more of your time. Um, I have a couple of quick questions that people emailed into me. Um,
okay.
that they were looking to have answered. Let me see. I want to try and I want to say I want to steer away from Blair Witch because I feel like there's much more to you and your career in the future than constantly talking about that. But
I
a
don't mind
lot
that.
of these questions are Blair Witch. Let's see. Do you ever think we will see an extended cut? Um, is there any way that could happen? Do you think that there's anything that this could add to the movie or would be exciting for the fans to see?
I mean, I think it would be really exciting for some fans. You know, I mean, it's not like there. I mean, there's a lot of really great stuff um, in the, you know, in the extended footage for sure. Um, but whether we're going to see it or not, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I would, like, I've talked to Lionsgate about, doing something for the 20th anniversary, and it just didn't work out. But I would be willing to edit a longer version, of the movie, with or without Dan. But I mean, obviously there would have to be some kind of commitment to, helping me do it. I'm saying? I couldn't just do it by myself. Um, so, I don't know. I'm not, I mean, I think eventually somebody will do an extended cut. Maybe for the 25th anniversary, if we can get our shit together.
Yeah, that would be cool. I think a lot of people would go crazy for that. Some people had said that maybe there wasn't enough to actually add to the story, but I think it's like you said. I think there's enough there to.
No, there's definitely enough. I mean, it's not like you're gonna, it's just more. It's more stuff. It's just more. Yeah. So if you like the movie, you're gonna like the extended footage. I mean, you're gonna definitely like it. I don't. We had to cut so much good stuff. So.
Yeah, it's a pity. Okay, so another one I have is, do you ever think we'll see a legit sequel to the original?
Yeah. Yes. I mean, I think that the Blair Witch 2016 was a legit sequel.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, I think that I think Book of Shadows was kind of a cousin of Blair Witch, like an offshoot.
Yeah.
It didn't exist in the same universe as the movie, and I think Blair Witch 3 did exist in the real universe of Blair Witch, so it is a sequel. It is a proper sequel. But maybe the only thing I think people, and I felt the same way, that I felt Blair Witch 2016 was a little bit too much of a remake, there's definitely a lot of really great new stuff in it, but it's almost like Force Awakens, was for me a little bit too much of a remake of, the first trilogy. And I think Adam and Simon did some great stuff, really like original, unique stuff with the new movie. But I felt that, and it's probably beyond their, I think Lionsgate already had the story in mind when they hired them.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure how much control they had over that, but I think, I would have loved for the 2016 version to like open up like a new chapter, like take us to a different place. You know what I mean? So whether there's going to be another sequel, I mean, I think it's inevitable.
Yeah, at some point. Yeah. I guess the question is probably the one that everybody wants to know, where you guys all get pulled back and we rewind the clock 20 years and we get the sequel that everybody wanted.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, like we talked about before, is that, it all depends on, on the way things go for either Dan or me or Greg. Like one of us has to get hot and kind of, because, I mean, unfortunately and fortunately, I mean, it's a business. So, the film business runs on, new talent, and, it's a very much, it's a very kind of like, you have a lot of original filmmakers that aren't invited back to do more often than not, obviously. So I think that, in order for us to have a chance, like I told you, a hit, or something, that would, that would kind of precipitate the idea of Lionsgate saying, "Oh yeah, man, let's get Ed to do another Blair Witch movie, or get Dan to do another Blair Witch movie. He just had a huge success with this other thing." But who knows? I think maybe if we do, I mean, I think at least for me, it's more realistic that I would get involved in some kind of television work with them. With the movie, which I think would probably be a more satisfying avenue to take because there is a lot of story to tell.
Mm-hmm.
So like the idea that we had for a Blair Witch television show was pretty damn cool. And I can't really say anything about it, but it was definitely in the same. It wasn't found footage, first of all, though there were found footage elements in it, but it was, it was pretty cool. It was basically like a story of, modern day Burkittsville, but a lot of ties to things that happened in the past, a lot of time travel, a lot of like, time, little vortexes or whatever you want to call it, constantly playing with that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
and
cool.
a lot of different threads that we were ready to pull, in the lore of all the stuff that we had created. But it didn't work out. So maybe one day.
Yeah, maybe you guys could have ended up over here. Because I see that it's hard to kind of know. I guess it's so open. It's hard to know what the actual lore is. But I had seen some stuff that was like ties back to Ireland and stuff.
Oh yeah, man, absolutely. I mean, because Ellie Kedward is, was an Irish immigrant. So, there's so many different ways to go with it,
Mm-hmm.
and that's why I think a television show would make more sense, because it's just like you can examine different things, different aspects of the mystery without being, stuck in, having to tell the story in an hour and a half, 2 hours.
Yeah. Because I was shocked to see that in some of the timelines I had read that Ellie actually ends up in the town I live in, Wexford, and there was this scene of like the burning of Wexford, and she disappears from the dungeons under the town.
Yeah.
And makes her way onto a ship and stuff. I think there's so many cool ideas there, whether it's set here or not.
I think you could. There's plenty to do, man. There's plenty of story for sure. So it would be cool to play in that sandbox again.
Cool. Right. Well, I've got 2 final questions before I let you go. So somebody asked me, did you ever imagine the witch looking anything like Mary Brown describes her in the beginning of the movie?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when Dan and I wrote that for I forget, Patricia,
mm-hmm.
the actress who played Mary Brown, we had this idea of the horse lady, and it was something that, that was something that had been described a few times, but mostly, Mary Brown was kind of like the eyewitness who saw this kid, this thing as a kid.
Fucking terrifying.
Yeah, so it's basically, it's her, and Patricia did such a great job, because we told all the people, that kind of all the townspeople that we don't want you to memorize stuff. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like, we want you to like take what we tell you and kind of make up your own, because the details could change as long as you describe some weird looking thing that looked like a horse. We don't care what you describe it as. You know what I mean? Like, don't worry about using people, So we told everybody that we're like, look it over and kind of memorize it a little bit, at least memorize the basic gist of the story. But we would love for you to kind of, go off on your own and add your own details, because that's really the way things work, in reality,
Yeah, I think that worked out perfect. I mean, a lot of people still, I guess, think that Mary Brown could have been the witch, or that they saw hair coming from under her jumper and stuff like that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, and that was, and that was the intention when we cast Patricia. Like we had gone off and looked for some people, some older actresses, and none of them like kind of had the right look. You know what I mean? Like, none of them like just looked kind of had like that really unique, just to put, I don't know how to describe it. Just didn't have that vibe, didn't have the vibe of like being, of just kind of being eccentric, like not eccentric enough. Mm-hmm. So when we met Patricia, we were like, oh my God, she would be perfect, So, and she luckily agreed to do it.
Yeah, that's crazy that that a lot of the interviews and stuff weren't 100% scripted. Like I talked to Susie maybe a
Mhm.
week or two ago, and I was actually shocked when she told me that she basically told them that she would wing it based on what they told her,
Oh yeah, man.
which is
No, I
crazy
mean,
because it worked
but
so well. That's another scene that sticks out in my mind. Like every time
yeah,
I see it, I kind of get goosebumps.
yeah, yeah. Well, it's kind of like, um, you can't. I mean, how you couldn't write and direct that,
Yeah, yeah.
you know, and that's what, like, for me, Blair Witch, the biggest lesson it taught me as a director is like sometimes you just got to back off and let things happen, because you know sometimes you don't know what'll happen. There's always nice surprises coming, and the more you stay out of the way, the more those surprises have chance to like come out and show themselves.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Even to this day, I use that advice.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, I guess final question then would be, um, your like I'm not sure if you get asked this a lot actually, because I was trying to think of what would what would not be your common, how was the Blair Witch, how is it making films, that kind of stuff.
Hmm.
Um, what would you consider your like the positive and negative from the way things went with not just Blair Witch, I guess, but that kind of was like that put you at the pinnacle.
Yeah.
Like,
Well, I mean, I think that the positives are, I'm talking to you right now. I talk to people like you all the time who are still, genuinely interested in the movie and are still inspired by it. And to me, that's like the greatest reward.
a
Um,
legacy.
and and the fact that it's given me a career that I've been able to transfer it over to the television world, and have become a fairly successful television director, and um, still be in the business, and obviously the people that I've met, my partners throughout the years, and Greg, who's still my partner, and all the fine artists that I've met, and not only making movies but in the television world. Um, and and so and I've been able to make a pretty good living for myself and been able to raise my family, and for the first 10 or so years, I was home most of the time. So I think that I was able to like see a lot of my kids actually day to day lives. I was able to share in that. um, so it's given me a really great life. um, and the negatives, I mean, you know, I think the biggest negative for me, and I think, I don't know, I think Dan is the same way. We've talked about it, but I can't remember completely. But, the idea that like when you start, you seemingly start your career, and, Dan and I had, and Greg, we had all, we had made movies before and we had failed. And, so it wasn't like our first movie. It wasn't like, hey, let's make a movie. And all of a sudden it's Blair Witch. Like we had gone through some pain of being a failed independent filmmaker for almost 15 years before we made Blair Witch. So, there is that, of course. But, so, you know, the idea of going from like a nobody to, one of the most highly successful independent films of all time, it just put a lot of pressure on us,
Yeah,
and I think part of the reason why I didn't make a movie until Altered, which was 6 years later, which is because you know um, I was stuck. There was certain things that I was just kind of stuck. I didn't know exactly what I was going to do.
mm-hmm.
Um, and so and then the expectation of like, how do you follow up Blair Witch? How do you follow up this phenomenon? Like, and I don't say that just to be to think of myself as something special or
Yeah,
whatever.
no,
But
but you're
it
definitely
was
right.
it's a crazy movie. It's one of these movies that like will be remembered for a long time. It's one of the classics. Not only horror but just in marketing. Is like this movie that like everybody knows about. It's just a weird movie that kind of was a worldwide phenomenon. So
Yeah, like I feel like without sounding disrespectful, I think it was gonna be next to impossible
oh yeah, I
to
mean,
top that.
and absolutely. I mean, it is impossible. You know. So I think that pressure was negative. Had a negative. You know, and then a lot of the things that happened after Blair Witch. But I mean that's kind of like everyday life, man. Everybody makes
Mm-hmm.
mistakes, and there's always things you go back and you're like, oh man, I wish I would have done that. I wish I would have done this, and so. Um, Overall, the positives
Outweigh the
outweigh,
negative.
outweigh the negatives, and also, when you have this kind of success and this kind of thing, it's a test of friendships. A lot of friendships get stronger. A lot of them, disappear, have a way of going away. So, there's some painful stuff in there that, I learned along the way. But, overall, like I said, I feel very fortunate to have been a part of it and to have been able to collaborate with, the team that we assembled. And, and it just, it's worked out really well.
Cool, cool. So where can everybody find you online, or is that something you try and keep away from?
No, I mean, I don't, on Facebook, I have my own thing, my, personal account, but
Yeah,
I've
of course.
made it's pretty private. I mean, I do have mostly people that I don't really accept friend requests from people I don't know personally,
Mm-hmm.
But, you could go to Hacks and Films on Facebook, which is, I put all the kind of the business side of stuff and articles about films that I love and, projects that I'm a part of and friends that are a part of. It's, kind of a cool little space. And then I'm rarely on Twitter, but my handle is Sanchez on the mic, MIC. And it's, I haven't really gotten into Twitter that much. I do stuff from sets and stuff. Sometimes I put photos and if we do, if we end up going into production on my television show, I think, we'll be tweeting from there. So,
Yeah,
but, so,
I'll put the links
but,
in.
mostly I'm not really like, you know, I mostly use social media just to keep in touch with, people that
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
I'll put the links below for anybody who's
cool.
looking for them. I appreciate your time, man.
Yeah, man.
I appreciate you doing this. I know you're a
No
busy man,
problem.
so
It was long, but it was good.
thanks, man. Well, that's it for this week's episode. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you again next week. If you enjoyed listening, please subscribe, give the podcast 5 stars, and follow us on all social media at First Class Horror.